Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allie. Today we're talking about the books I read in August. It was kind of a flop of a month for me. The average rating was probably a low 3, and I honestly think it was more my mood than the books themselves. I did reread New Moon by Stephanie Meyer. I didn't even know that there is like a reread happening. I just listen to that series every now and then when I'm bored and I have nothing else to read. And New Moon is like my favorite one. I don't know what to say about it except for I just love a story about someone who is going through a breakup. I don't know why. Even if they don't handle it well, I'm here for it. Rereading this does, like, the older I get and the more I reread it, the more Edward infuriates me. Like in the first book, it's fine. Like I can see past all the weird red flags. Like, of course, the older I get, the more weird it is that this 100-year-old being hasn't even tried to date anyone besides this 16-year-old girl. Whatever. I can see past that, but the fact that he like lies to Bella, tells her that she's basically not good enough for him, and then after she saves his ass, he's like, I can't believe you believed me. Like, that man should have been on his knees begging for forgiveness. I'm sorry. Despite that, I did have a lot of fun rereading this. I started Eclipse right after and I couldn't. Eclipse is my least favorite book because they are so immature. Bella, Edward, and Jacob all make horrible decisions in that book, just like behavioral. Jacob kisses Bella without her permission. Edward acts like, oh my God. Doesn't he steal like a part of her car so that she can't leave her house? That is... Oh, and then Bella herself with like, make up your mind, girl. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to keep going with the series right now. But yeah, that was probably the most fun I had, at least the highest rated book in these, because I love that book. I read The Bodyguard, which if you've seen my vlog, I was kind of mean about, but I had actually a lot of fun reading this, even though it was a 2-star. I don't know how to describe that because I feel like most 2-star romances I'm usually really infuriated by, but this one almost felt like a spoof. And I'll give it to the author, the characters and the setup of what was going on. I think that's what made it fun. So that is a positive for sure. This is about a female bodyguard who is in charge of watching over this actor. However, the actor goes back home to Texas because his mom is sick and he doesn't want his family knowing that he has a bodyguard, so they have to fake date. I usually hate fake dating, and I actually didn't mind it in this because it made sense, you know what I mean? I think the most ridiculous part about this is that in the author's blurb right back here, it says that she's compared to Jane Austen and Nora Ephron, and I couldn't forget that. Like, maybe if that hadn't been in there, I wouldn't have cringed so much. I can't remember too much of exactly why I hated this anymore, but I think it was like, there were a bunch of speeches, like, this is why I love you, and this is why I feel this way. And I think this would make a good Netflix rom-com though. I feel like, you know, someone could tune this up and make it really fun because, like I said, the setup is good, the characters are good, the atmosphere is good, but there was something about this that I actually hated, but I had a lot of fun with. Oh, then I read Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. This was good. I forgot what I gave this, like a 3.5? This is definitely my favorite romance that I read this month, I guess compared to The Bodyguard especially. I listened to the audiobook because Julia Whelan why can't I ever say that word? Narrates it herself. And she is just a legend, let me tell you. She has so many accents and so many versions of each accent in multiple genders. Like, she's amazing. This story is about an audiobook narrator. To make it short and sweet, she does fall for the male audio narrator, but it's more a love story about like a hidden identity kind of trope. It's hard to explain, so I would recommend this one if you like romance. I thought it was really fun, really cute. It did feel a little convoluted at like the 70% mark, but that's usually where I lose a little interest in romance books. It also had kind of a turn, not really a plot twist or anything, but there's one point in this book where they go to another location and I don't really like that. I like my books, especially my romance books, to be very concentrated in setting, so that's just a personal preference. Okay, my other romance I read this month was Magnolia Parks, which is just going absolutely viral. When I first saw this cover, I thought it was like a Swiss Family Robinson back in the day pirate story or something like that. But the back of the book looks like this. and that's more accurate. It is a Gossip Girl set in London, and I would say that was pretty accurate. I actually did a video about this and the next book I'll mention, comparing it to the TV show. The only thing, and probably the most insufferable part of this, is that though there are many characters, a whole crew, and there is this kind of found family aspect, which I really like, all of these many characters are only obsessed with the two main characters of this book. Like, they don't care about their own problems, they only care about these two characters. And it was insufferable because, so basically it's about these 24, 25-year-olds. It's dual perspective between BJ, yes, I know, and Magnolia Parks. They have been like childhood sweethearts for the longest time, but a few years ago, BJ cheated on Magnolia, but ever since then, they've just been kind of torturing each other. Like, she'll date boys, but not sleep with them to piss him off, and he'll sleep with girls, but not date them to piss her off. And they like sleep in the same bed, and they're just unhealthy. It was engaging enough to read. Like, I read, what was this, 500 pages? I think I gave this a 2.5 star. It was really insufferable, just the relationship. I don't care about these characters, at least the main two. Like, I want more for them. I want them to heal and literally never talk to each other again and get the F over themselves. But I do not care about ever reading about them together again. You know what's interesting though is that this book also had fake dating in it. Magnolia Parks obviously dates other boys to make BJ jealous, and she fake dates this one character, and I actually liked that. If you're new to my channel, that's actually a trope that I hate, and it's so weird that in these two books that I gave 2 stars to, that was the best part of it. So maybe I'm evolving, I don't know. I did get the second book, which I just love this cover. It's very Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. And this is following 2 other characters. One of them's not even in the friend group. So I'm actually kind of excited to read about this because it doesn't, I mean, I'm sure it will involve these 2, but it will be nice to have a little bit more dimensions to this friendship group. And I think this is more about like gang and drugs, so it's like a little more dangerous. And I hear that it's a little bit more plot focused. In that same video, I read Dirt Creek, a novel by Haley Scrivener, and I compared this to, within just the first chapter of reading it, to Mayor of Easttown. This is a mystery, not really a thriller, more of a mystery. A young girl, 12 years old, has gone missing in this small town in Australia, and like a big city FBI agent, I don't think it's the actual FBI because they're in Australia, but she comes and she's doing an investigation. But we also follow the points of view of the missing girl's best friend, who was probably my favorite point of view, just because you get kind of like a child's perspective. I think the author kind of aged that perspective down a little bit. It didn't really feel like a 12-year-old, it felt more like an 8-year-old, but it was still wonderful. And then the most interesting thing that this book did was that there was another perspective. Well, there are a couple more perspectives, but there was one perspective that was a first-person plural, where it was this Greek chorus is what the Goodreads description says, and it's like the children of this town in collection. And it is the coolest thing like to do in a mystery book, just to create kind of a weird tone, but also an innocent but creepy tone. I don't know, it was just very interesting. And I think this is the author's debut novel. So that's like probably one of the coolest debut like perspective choices that I've read in a while. So good on you, Haley Scrivener. I'm excited to read what else she publishes. I think I ended up giving this a 3.5, maybe a 3. As like a mystery, I don't think it was that plot twisty or surprising, but in the tone of it and the atmosphere of this small town, I think it was really well done. And then I read Briefly a Delicious Life by Nell Stevens. I think this is also a debut book. Maybe not. This was really cool in concept. It is a sapphic paranormal historical romance / memoir of this ghost. Let me try that again. Okay, so our main character's name is Blanca. She is a ghost, and the setting is 1838, and she's been dead for hundreds of years. She's in this town called, oh God, I forget what it's called. Oh God, I don't know, but it is a, I think it's a Spanish island maybe? And so that is kind of half the story. We get Blanca looking back on her life and her growing up and her dying as a 14-year-old, and in the end we find out what happens. But we also get her in the present of 1838. And the other half of the story involves George Sand, who is an actual historical writer. It was a woman who wrote as George Sand in Paris, and George Sand's famous lover, Chopin, the composer. And it's so cool that like this author randomly thought of this tiny slice of time where Chopin and George Sand live in this random town, because it is on their Wikipedia pages. It's like one sentence that they lived there and it ended in disaster, it said. And it's so cool that like someone just saw that and they're like, oh, I'm gonna just branch out on this and make this entire book. I think as a concept, it's pretty cool. I do care more about Blanca. I did like George as a character. I thought she was really interesting, but at the same time, I was more interested in Blanca because as a ghost, she could kind of go into people's minds and see their thoughts and see their memories. Part of the coolest thing about this, well, maybe the coolest thing for me, is that she's kind of perverse in a way, just because she died as like a horny teenager. And so Blanca says, when I rummage through people's memories, I look for two things: formative experiences and rude bits. That is to say, I look for those crystallizing events that shape a person into who they are, and anything that had a hint of sex about it. So yeah, definitely a cool book. And I don't know how I felt about it. I was in such a weird mood by the end of this, and I listened to half of it on audiobook. I thought it was beautifully written, but I ended up giving it a 3 stars just because I was interested and I liked hearing and reading about these two stories and their connection. Oh yeah, I forgot to say that Blanca is in love with George. Like, she has fallen hardcore for George Sand. But at the same time, I didn't have too much interest in it. Like, I really liked Blanca and her storyline, but the George Sand part, even though it was interesting and it was very cool how the author went there, I just don't know if I cared that much. I don't know, maybe that's rude, I'm sorry. So that's it. A little shorter than usual, but it's kind of been a weird month. Definitely I will be reading more this month, although who knows. If you don't know, I'm doing this thing called the September series, which is just what I'm calling it. I know it's stupid, but whatever. We're gonna look past that. But I was just thinking, I said that I want to read more than I ever have, which would be 14 books in 1 month. But I also said that I'm willing to DNF any book if I'm not feeling it. So I was thinking last night, I was like, what if I end up reading like more pages than I ever have, but I never finished a single book because I'm just like being so finicky. So that would be very interesting. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know if you've read these books. Also, what's your favorite Twilight book or movie? Because the New Moon movie is also my favorite movie. Like, well, Twilight and New Moon as a book, I'll read either one, like as my favorite, but New Moon the movie, there's something about the soundtrack, there's something about the lighting, I just eat it up. And Kristen Stewart's hair, yes. Anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Toodles.